Hey there, back with another episode on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I've been telling myself for the last couple of years that despite the fact that the newer phones have ProRes in them and, you know, pretty good video specs, good codec, etc., that I'm just going to stick with my small form factor walk-around cameras like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera OG and the FX30 I've been using quite a bit lately, a little bit bigger but still fairly small form factor. The last few years I've been pretty much using these walk-around cameras in the vein of the Fuji X100, which I loved as a walk-around stills camera, still loved to this day as a walk-around stills camera, and most recently the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera OG, which I love as a walk-around cinema camera. So I just recently picked up the iPhone Pro Max, iPhone 16 Pro Max, and intrigued by some of the new features on the camera. A little bit bumped up ultra wide specs and extended telephoto specs, going out to a 5x telephoto on the longest lens, and then still having our standard lens with the 24mm and 48mm, and then having the ultra wide at 13mm. So you basically have in your pocket a 13mm ultra wide, 24mm wide, 48mm standard, and I think it's like a 120mm telephoto, all within the form factor of the iPhone. So this is something that's pretty impressive, walking around with a camera in your pocket that you have with you all the time, with a good selection of lenses and a great codec in the ProRes Apple log codec and color space. So it's kind of popped back up on my radar whether or not this is a viable alternative to, for example, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera OG or the FX30. I mean, obviously these cameras both have different use cases for myself. And then there's the camera I'm shooting this on right now, which is the Red Komodo 6K OG. So there's a bunch of different cameras, all of them variable ability to be rigged out and variable use case scenarios. But let's see if the iPhone 16 Pro Max or iPhone 16 Pro can fit in somewhere within that hierarchy of cinema cameras. So the first step with the iPhone 16 Pro Max is to use good software. And I mean, these days I believe the best iPhone camera software, video camera, cinema camera software would be the Blackmagic app, which free app and a fantastic app with great usability. Big downside that I've found when I had my 14 Pro Max, which also could shoot ProRes, was that you definitely need, if you're going to be shooting outside in uncontrolled lighting conditions, you definitely need a filter on your camera. So I played around with the idea when I had the 14 Pro Max about getting a small cage or a case that had the ability to add a filter onto it, and just really never pulled the trigger on that because I've been really happy with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera OG, and that's been my thing for the last year or so, to carry that around as a distinct filming device, right? I still would use my iPhone for some photography, not targeted photography, not photography where I'm going out to do photography, but if I just happen to see something cool or some great light or something interesting, I would obviously use the camera I had on me, which was the iPhone, and was very happy with the results of the iPhone Pro Max 14. Having stepped up to the iPhone 16 Pro Max recently, I thought, look, I'm going to try this out as a cinema camera. In order to do that, I'm going to need a cage or a case that would be able to allow for filters to be added to it. So I went ahead, and there was a great deal. First of all, it was really difficult to get a cage type thing for the iPhone 16 Pro Max because it's brand new, just came out. And lately I've been buying my phones like right away. There's better deals if you get last year's model. Like I could have had the 15 Pro Max much cheaper, but I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna get the newest one, and then I keep it for a couple years, then I pass it down to my wife, and she ends up with like a bit newer phone as well. So it just keeps us in that cycle. Like she just got my 14 Pro Max and she's very happy with that. So it just keeps us a little bit more up to date in that respect. And so I got the 16 Pro Max cage. I got the Neewer cage that just popped up on Amazon, happened to be on sale, so I was able to pick it up for like $60. And it came with a filter ring attachment, so that you could use a 67mm filter ring filter size with the rig, and as well as a couple of custom plates that will allow you to screw on like some of the specific lenses, like the moment lenses or the small rig lenses that are designed for iPhones. But my main purpose was to get a filter ring so that I could use a variable ND. That's generally what I use when I'm walking around with any of my cameras, is a variable ND when I'm filming. That way all your exposure settings can remain the same, and you're adjusting exposure simply with the variable ND filter, that's just the way I do it. I think that's the common standard way of adjusting exposure when you're talking about video and cinematography. You don't really want to mess with your settings. You want to be able to keep your settings, keep your shutter speed, keep your aperture setting the way you want it, and then use the variable ND in order to adjust exposure. So I went ahead and got that. I think it was like 60 Canadian dollars, so that's like what, less than $40 US. Fantastic deal. It's a really robust cage. It makes the camera, the phone larger. It definitely does widen it, makes it a little bit more difficult to hold, but I have relatively large hands, so not that big of an issue. Makes it heavier because it is an aluminum cage. It adds a whole bunch of 1/4" mount points on the phone, which is just fantastic for mounting a whole array of different things if you want to rig the phone out. My idea is to keep it still relatively minimal and just have the filter. So basically what I'm looking at is having a stripped down phone with just the rig and the filter, and recording directly onto the iPhone media rather than using an external drive. I have an external drive that works well with it, but that adds bulk to the setup. And what I've found is, for the most part, what I'm shooting is fairly small clips. I mean, not necessarily really small clips, but 10-15 minutes within that range. So not extremely long clips. I'm not shooting like an interview with this type of setup. It's mostly walk around things that I'm doing with it. So because it's fairly small clips, I can easily just take those clips, move them onto the external hard drive later, or even if I was walking around, I could take those clips off of the phone if I was running out of space, and then just keep recording onto the phone, super fast media. Now, some of the frame rates, the higher frame rates, like I think 60 and 120, 4K 60 and 4K 120. I know for sure 4K 120 you require an external solid state drive in order to record to get that speed. I'm not sure about 4K 60, but to be fair, I very rarely use these higher shutter speeds, so that's not a massive issue for me. If you're shooting a ton of slow-mo, definitely you would want to have like a solid state drive attached to it so that you get those higher frame rates. But for me, the I'm shooting predominantly 4K 24 frames per second. So my frame rates are generally standard frame rates. So for me, yes, this has become a very kind of a neat little walk-around setup that sort of rivals the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera OG. Form factor is very pocketable because even with the filter on it, it still slips into my pocket easily. It's not the easiest to hang on to, but I did find that by adding a small NATO rail to one of the 1/4 inch threads on the bottom of the phone, I could easily mount the Tilta NATO rail hand grip that I have for the Komodo onto the phone. Obviously, that changes the form factor to some degree, but it's something that you can slip on and off very easily and keep in your pocket for when you wanted to get some like a better grip on the phone when you're filming. You didn't have to leave it on there all the time. You can slip it off very easily. So that was something that I feel adds to the ergonomics of shooting with the phone. But even just holding it by hand, when I've just got only the cage and the filter on, it's not a problem. You can shoot like that fairly easily. So yeah, that's a very viable walk-around setup for shooting walk-around video. The kind of stuff that I like to shoot is like lifestyle stuff, walking around, walking the dog, getting out into nature. Yeah, so what's your favorite walk-around rig? Are you using the iPhone more these days, or are you sticking with something else? Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's another camera out there that fits the bill better than any of the ones that I'm talking about. Love to hear what you think. Love all the engagement I've been getting. I've been getting a lot of engagement on some of my older videos, talking about some of these older video cameras, cinema cameras. They're still viable in 2024. And share links to your videos too, because I'd love to see what you're out there shooting. And yeah, keep going, keep shooting. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day. Take care.